All right, another pretty cool thing that we can do in Illustrator is we can modify text using a special tool called the Touch Type tool. We can modify the properties of a character such as size, scale, rotation, and we can do it with a mouse or we can do it with touch controls. So if you're working on a device that has a touch screen or an iPad, the pinching, the zooming, the twisting to rotate, all of that is enabled with that tool. Let's go back to our first artboard. Artboard 1, and with our selection tool, we're going to select Strawberry Lemonade, the object, type object, and if it isn't already dragged into positions similar to this, like I have it, go ahead and do that. And we're going to zoom in a little bit because we're going to work with these letters using this special tool. All right, the tool that we need is not in our toolbar right now, I don't believe. I'm going to look what's nested under the type tool, and I have regular type, type on a path, and vertical. And the tool I'm looking for is not here, which means we have to click on these three dots and go into our additional tools and look for it. And we are going to find it somewhere. There it is, the Touch Type tool. And I'm going to drag it and I'm going to nest it with my type tools. So escape out of that panel, and now nested with my type tool, come on, I have this new one called the Touch Type tool. Make sure that that is the active tool at the top. All right, we're going to click on the letter M in Lemonade and watch what happens. It very wisely selected just the letter M. And we're not using a normal text tool, we're using this Touch Type tool. The box appears around the letter, and there's different like anchor points or bounding boxes that we see. I see a rotate, I can see corners that I can stretch out, lots of things I can do with it here. First thing we're going to do is just drag it down a little on the baseline to reposition it. So we're going to make it look a little bit out of line with the rest. There are limits as to how far you can drag it, and it's based on the kerning and the baseline shift values of this font. So it's going to let us shift the baseline of this one letter a little bit. We're going to click the N in Lemonade, and when we see the rotate handle, the double arrow at the top, we're going to drag it clockwise to see about -10%. So we just tweak that letter N, and then we're also going to drag it down a little bit to reposition it as well. So we're kind of giving a fun and funky vibe to this. You can experiment on any of the letters. You may do more of this or choose not to, but it's a way to target each individual letter and do something to it. So I could tip that one out. It kind of pushed everything wonky. I don't really like that, but we definitely wanted to tweak the M and the N using the Touch Type tool. And then I'm just going to deselect, and notice it's still one thing. If we were in our regular type tool, which I'll just switch back to, it's all still treated as one normal word. It's not anything different. All right. Resizing and reshaping these text objects. So as we click on something to get the bounding box, this rectangle is what we're calling the text object. Let's fill this artboard into our window so we can see the whole artboard. And we're going to get our selection tool. And we're going to get something else to place in this document. So we're going to do a File, Place, and we're going to find the L9 column text. Only don't double click yet, take your time here. We don't need the show import options. We saw those last time how they work, so this is fine as is, and because of that we can go ahead and click place. And we're going to have a loaded, oh funny it still came up. We're still going to have a loaded cursor, 1 of 1, and we're going to move it to this blank area right in the center here, and we're going to click and drag out a rectangle within this area and the type is going to flow into that. And from here, we're going to create columns of text. We can use a command up in our option bar in the type column, type, and then we can go down to area type options. We'll get to that in a second. But let's see how this actually works in practice. So with our selection tool, it's already selected, I guess. I'm good. I have a selection around the stuff we just placed in here. And we're going to do type, area type options. I'll move this out of the way a little bit. And in here, we can change the width and height of this shape, this rectangle. We can change the number of rows or the number of columns. And we're going to change the columns to be 2. And we're going to turn on our preview button. And notice in that existing rectangle shape, it broke it into 2 columns with a spacing gap in between here. And here's the span and the gutter around it. So you can tweak any of this really. The text is now going to flow between these 2 columns. The parts that didn't fit now bumped into this second column. We're going to drag the bottom middle bounding box up and down. And I'm going to say OK to that. And back here with our selection tool, I'm going to take this bottom middle one up and down, and you can see how it, if I go all the way up, it pushes it into 2 equally balanced columns that are quite thin, each of them. So drag that up so that the text is split equally between the 2 columns. Obviously, this doesn't look great because we have a parentheses, 6 to 7 lemons, and it gets pushed down and whatever. We'll deal with that later. But we split it into 2 columns very easily. We can also reshape text objects. So with our selection tool, we're going to click on this text box down here, object that says directions, and then lorem ipsum. It's a rectangle. We are going to zoom in a little bit. I want to work down here exclusively. And we're going to switch to the direct selection tool. And we're going to click on the lower left corner, this one down here. See how it turned dark blue and the others did not? We're going to start dragging this to the right, and I can bounce up or down, and I don't really mean to. So while I'm dragging to the right, I'm also going to hold Shift, and that's going to keep that line from bouncing up or down. And all I'm going to do is push it in so that I'm avoiding having text on top of the shapes behind there, the green. And when I'm happy with where it is, I let go of my mouse, and then I let go of that extra key on the keyboard. So instead of having a normal rectangle, we just modified it a little bit, and our type still flows within here. So using the direct selection tool, you can do that. Another cool feature that we learned about a week or so ago was using the eyedropper tool, and how that actually samples the attributes of something that you're clicking on. So it samples what's the fill, what's the stroke. But in this case, it's going to sample type attributes and then copy them to the text that you have highlighted. So fit everything in the window. And we're going to go get our type tool, which might still be nested underneath the touch type tool. So you might need to click the flyout menu and go back to the regular type tool. And the grilled fish. Do we need to go to the other artboard apparently? Apparently we need to go to the other artboard. I guess I missed that step. Go to artboard 2 so we can actually work with a fish. And we're going to click in the empty area above the fish somewhere. So I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to type in the word grilled. It's all in caps. I'm going to go back to the selection tool, and the text object is selected. So this is the thing that we are targeting. When we use the eyedropper, whatever we click on, those rules will apply to the thing that we have selected. So we're going to use the eyedropper. Oh, I think they wanted us to have all the artboards showing. That's probably what I missed. Command Option 0 to do that. So with this word grilled selected, we're going to grab our eyedropper and we're going to click on one of the letters in strawberry. Just be careful that we're not clicking on the funky M or the N. We're going to click on strawberry. And that applied all of the attributes: font, font size, font color, spacing, leading, whatever. All of it was applied with one click, so that was super helpful. In the Properties panel, we are going to change this from the red. We actually want to go with brown on this page. There's a swatch named brown. So we're going to change the word grilled to be brown, and we're going to deselect, and we're going to save. And if you're saving by page number, 263. And we will move on to our next topic.